attention. It's my great pleasure to introduce the Honourable James Merlino, Deputy Premier and Minister for Education, who will talk about the government's vision and the achievements in education. His title is Vision for Public Education. Could you please make the Minister welcome? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rob, and good morning, everyone. Firstly, to Judy, thank you very much, Judy, for the invitation to be here and to talk with you all this morning. Last time I was here, as you say, I was in opposition, and I can distinctly remember the gathering here. And I was thinking as I was coming in to talk with you, usually at some events you can be pretty hard-hitting and partisan, and other events you need to be a bit more polite and try not to be too partisan. But I can distinctly remember coming into this conference, I think it was a bit later in the year, wasn't it? I think it was October, it may have been. It was very close to the election campaign anyway, and I thought as I was coming in, bugger it, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think, and that's what I did. But it's very pleasing to be back here in government and be in a position to actually make a difference and implement some of the things and address some of the issues that I raised last year. Can I also begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we're gathered and pay my respects to elders past and present. As I said, I'm pleased to be with you this morning. It's a great opportunity to share and test our vision for education in Victoria and to explore with you some of the opportunities that we have ahead of us. And we do have some incredibly exciting opportunities. But one of the other challenges of this speech is that I'll be making some big announcements with the Premier in a few weeks' time. So I'll give you a taste of a few things, but I can't be as fulsome as I'd like to be because I need to make sure that I keep that for the announcement in a few weeks' time. Over the past 9 months, I've had the privilege to visit hundreds of schools across the state and to join with many of you through your network meetings, starting, I believe, with the Manningham Principals Network back in March, then most recently last week with the VASSP Eastern Group, and with the entire state in between. I've tried to get to as many principal network meetings as I can. As I've said at each of those meetings, I believe that events like this are significant examples of our system at its best. When our school leaders gather together like you have this morning and over the course of the next couple of days, you represent an example of the kind of work that I believe we need to build on and extend. It's the kind of systemness that Michael Fullan spoke of in his 2011 paper called The Wrong Drivers for Whole System Reform. This, what you're doing today and tomorrow, is one of the right drivers. My purpose this morning is not to repeat what I've said in the course of discussions over the last several months, though I do hope that the nature and intent of those words is beginning to filter through our system and that a real sense of change and momentum is beginning to be felt by all of you. Instead, what I'd like to focus on this morning is to highlight just two of the key themes that have emerged from these discussions. These themes represent some of the big ideas that are beginning to take shape through our education state consultations. They're the ideas that will form the basis of a series of announcements our government will be making, as I said, in a few weeks' time. And they're the ideas that I hope will come to characterise our system in the years to come. The first idea is about learning from within. It's about identifying the exceptional work that's done in our schools each and every day, about calling out that work and deliberately, methodically, and systematically learning from it. We have a great school system here in Victoria, a great public system, but we've got pockets of excellence. It's a system that's made great by the expertise and dedication of our teachers, our leaders, our communities and our students. But we also have some persistent challenges. I won't repeat to you all of the stats that describe those challenges. I won't go through the PISA data or the NAPLAN data, and I won't talk about tails and curves and gaps. The fact is, you know the faces and the lives that sit behind those numbers better than I do. You also know and understand that the pace of change in our world means that, as important as some of those numbers might be, they're increasingly insufficient to describe the breadth and diversity of success for students that our system should aspire to. What I will say, though, is that despite the tails and the gaps, and despite all of the challenges our system has endured over recent years, despite all of this, our system remains an incredibly strong one. We have some truly outstanding models of practice and collaboration that are delivering tangible results for Victoria's students day by day and week by week. Our collective challenge is therefore not to create success, but to sustain it and to grow it, to learn from within so that those pockets of excellence, those opportunities that are currently available for some, become the guarantee of success for all. And it's this concept of success for all that represents the second big idea that I hope comes to characterise our system in the years ahead. If I'm asked right now what the education state means in a few words, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's about creating a system where all genuinely means all. And that's our shared responsibility, our shared purpose. Everyone in this room, whether it's through our own children or the young people we interact with day to day, every one of us knows that every student has a spark in them, a set of passions and talents and the prospects of a bright future. It's our collective responsibility, our shared purpose, to look out for that spark. It's my purpose as Minister, it's the purpose that motivates our teachers and ES staff, and I know it's the purpose that sits behind the work of every one of you as leaders in this room today. The notion that all truly does mean all. So to deliver on our vision of the education state, to learn from within and create success for all, we've got some work to do. We need to make some changes and to do better for our students than we've ever done before. But it's not good enough, and here is where I'll repeat verbatim the words that I've said at every single network meeting. It's not good enough to expect you as our education leaders to do more with less, or to expect you to rise to that challenge without increases in support that are proportionate to those raised expectations. As Minister, I believe it's my role, my responsibility to work within government and with the department to ensure that you can access the support you need to meet those expectations and to do better for your students. And so that's what the Premier, my colleagues and I have set out to do since coming to government. We began with a consultation process to identify how we can strengthen the department's regional relationships and support. This process has sought your views on how we can get behind you as a system and help you to be successful for your students and your communities. And I thank you for the input, either directly through Judy and the leadership of VASSP or through your networks or individually. I thank you for the input that you've provided. It's crucial that we reimagine what our regions can be and create a model that makes a tangible difference to your work. A system that is set up to enable us to learn from within and to ensure that all genuinely does mean all. We deliberately tested a range of options across the entire system and sought your views about the range of supports and relationships that you need. Some small urgent changes have already been implemented this year, but for the most part, a new model will be in operation for the start of the 2016 year. And then we come to the budget. In the lead up to last year's election, almost a year ago now, we outlined a range of commitments to set the direction and build the foundations to deliver the very best education system for every Victorian, to build the education state. Back then, in November last year, we outlined a $1.3 billion promise to Victorian schools. In May's state budget, we delivered almost $4 billion, the biggest ever single boost to education funding in Victoria's history. I want to spend only a short amount of time on the budget just to give you a sense of what we're striving to achieve and what's yet to come. Aside from honouring our election commitments, we set out to achieve two things. Firstly and importantly, to repair some of the damage that was done to our system in recent years. And secondly, to set out to demonstrate our commitment to Victoria's schools, to establishing Victoria as the education state, to build that momentum, to build that sense of optimism and opportunity and collaboration between government and with each and every school in our state. In terms of repairing the damage, we put in place the $148 million Camp Sports and Excursions Fund to replace what was lost through the scrapping of the Education Maintenance Allowance. We partnered with Food Bank to invest $13.5 million in breakfast clubs. We provided $480,000 for Glasses for Kids program, and we've extended the partnership with State Schools Relief to support up to 25,000 extra students. We began the implementation of the Special Needs Plan with an initial $10 million investment to the Inclusive Schools Fund. And when it came to rebuilding the physical infrastructure of our system, the budget represented the biggest ever capital investment in the history of Victorian education. It committed $730 million to build, upgrade and maintain schools across the state, with $610 million of that going directly to government schools. We've got well over 400 projects on the go right now, and we don't have a moment to lose. And for the first time ever, the budget finally saw Victoria commit in full to our obligations under the Gonski Agreement for 2015, 16 and 17 school years. The funding secured in the budget filled the $850 million shortfall against Gonski that we inherited. And we have the BRAC's review of the SRP to guide our approach beyond 2017. It's this investment in the future that gets us to the heart of our commitment to establish Victoria as the education state, ensuring we have a funding system that genuinely supports you to do the work you need to do and to embed excellence and opportunity in our system. Each of you will receive your indicative budgets for 2016 in the final week of this term. For the first time ever, as we promised last year, you will see a line item detailing education state funding, including the additional Gonski funding, going to your school tagged as the education state. In the same week, we'll be making some announcements about our shared vision for education in Victoria, ensuring that we have a clear plan for the priorities that are going to deliver the gains in student outcomes that have eluded us for too long. We'll also be announcing a set of targets to guide our work. Where do we collectively want to be as the education state in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? And not just setting targets amongst the usual suspects, literacy and numeracy, and we will, but have targets that go, as I said at the beginning of my speech, to the breadth and diversity of success. As I've also said, some of the challenges we're facing in our system are pretty stubborn ones. If we're going to draw from our existing expertise, learn from within and ensure success for all, then we're going to have to find new ways of working and a different set of solutions to the ones we've tried before. We've had significant resources into our system before. So when we talk about stalled outcomes, we're talking about over a decade. And during that period of time, we've had significant investment through national partnerships. We've had significant funding and reform through state governments. But we need to address this persistent challenge around outcomes. That's why we've consulted so extensively over the first half of this year. And it's why we need to ensure that we continue the dialogue, ensuring we have the opportunities to sit down with all of you, to test ideas and to develop solutions together. We also need to deliberately create the opportunities to speak directly with students, to hear their ideas about how we can change. We know that students are the greatest resource we have in education. They have a powerful sense of their own learning and how we can improve. And we need to listen to those perspectives. We know that effective reform in education is about focusing our effort, not trying to do everything, but selecting the small number of reforms that will make the biggest difference for students, and then relentlessly pursuing those objectives with clear targets to guide our progress. That's where I want us to be in a few weeks' time. To again quote Michael Fullan, it's time to embrace and relentlessly commit to the right drivers. We have a great opportunity ahead of us to build an education system that is characterised by expertise, collective efficacy, trust and respect, and where all genuinely does mean all. Your insight and experience will be critical, and I look forward to working with you as we create the education state together. A couple more things we need to do. We're working furiously to get to the position where we have got something quite exciting to talk about in a few weeks' time. We've got a submission we lodge tomorrow, a discussion with my cabinet colleagues next week, and then as just before you get your indicative budgets, some big announcements with the Premier. So I've given you a bit of a sense of that. I'm sorry I can't go into more detail, but I look forward to engaging directly with VASSP, and can I acknowledge the outstanding work that VASSP has done over many years and will continue to do, and congratulate Judy on your first year or so as leader of VASSP as well. So thank you very much for having me here this morning. I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Cheers.